Hello, all. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Godforge Rising. This is episode 4, and I'm really excited to do this episode because previously we talked about how it was kind of unfair to compare Raid to Godforge because Raid has been around for so long and Godforge is a game that you can't even play yet. One of the things that the Godforge team has been talking about recently is how they want to make Godforge obviously different from Raid, and I thought it would be a really good comparison to talk about the Raid new user experience and what the Godforge team could hopefully improve upon when they launch their game. So I made a new Raid account just to experience the new user experience again. So Raid is a very old game, 7 years, 5 months. It started in July of 2018, and Raid is a good game. That's one of the things I've noticed is that there's a lot of videos out there that are hating on Raid. Raid is a good game. I played it 4 to 5 years ago, and I played it for about a year. My account had maybe 15 or 20 Legos. I had Arbiter. I'd finished the quest to get Arbiter, but I lost that account. That account's gone. So I started a new account about 45 days ago, and so I wanted to talk about my new user experience in Raid now and see what Godforge could hopefully improve upon. So let's first talk about what is good in Raid. And first of all, the graphics are great. I like how the user interface is organized. There's some things that could be improved, but overall it's a pretty good user interface. And there is a lot of PvE content in the game. You've got the campaign, you've got the dungeons, you've got the faction wars, you've got 3 different kinds of arena, you've got clan bosses, 3 different clan bosses. Doom Tower rotates on different kinds of Doom Towers. And there's both normal and hard, and there's Cursed City, Siege, and actually new content called Grim Forest, which I absolutely love. It's actually a really good addition to the game. I started before Grim Forest came out, and now that they've added Grim Forest, that's a really cool feature. So, and then of course there's faction wars, and all the different factions, and I actually really like faction wars because it's game content that makes a lot of the champions who you would normally never use otherwise relevant. Raid is a really fun champion collector game, and so it kind of feels bad when you're collecting all these champions that you're never going to use. And so Faction Wars allows you to use a lot of champions that otherwise you wouldn't even bother building. So I think that's really cool. I hope that Godforge has something equivalent to Faction Wars so that we can have that same feeling. There's a few other things that are really awesome about Raid. There are a lot of content creators who've made a ton of videos about Raid. So you can find a lot of videos out there talking about how to beat certain bosses, what champions to build, all kinds of stuff. So as a new user, you've got your missions tab to kind of help guide you in working through the game, which is very helpful as a new user. And you've got 3 different champions that you can eventually earn, all legendaries, which are awesome. And then you've got your daily quests, weekly, monthly, advanced quests, which help get you free stuff and help level up your account. And then you've got all these challenges for champions, artifacts, dungeons, arenas. So there's a lot of things to go through, a lot of things to work on. So there's lots of content to get free stuff. And then there's always events, which are, and there's a good variety of events. They do rotate back, but every once in a while there's a new event too. So good amount of events and tournaments. They give you, especially if you farm Brutal campaign, they give you lots of green shards, and that's food monsters, food champions. So they're giving you plenty of fodder. And there are tons of things to tinker with. So, you've got your champions, and another cool thing about Raid is that they release a lot of codes through their content creators. that will actually give you some pretty nice monsters in the game. And so I used the code that got me Sun Wukong, and then got me Deacon Armstrong, and it got me Ugo, and it also got me Tagore. So that was a pretty nice code. 1 legendary, 3 epics, and all really useful monsters. And then when I started the game, fairly soon after I started, they had the Predator Xenomorph collab, and so I was able to get a free legendary through that, and I've got 5 awakenings through that event for him. So the Xenomorph is a very strong legendary. I really like him. He's on crap gear, but eventually he'll have good gear. Another one of the really good things about Raid is there's so much stuff to tinker with. So if you're one of those players that like to tinker with things, you can tinker with your artifacts and your accessories. You've got relics to work on. You've got masteries to choose and farm for. So there's tons of things to tinker with, and I personally really like that. So you can really customize your champions, and it can allow you to do better than other people who don't tinker as much. So those are some really cool things about Raid. You may be wondering, if I think Raid is such a good game, then why did I stop playing? Why am I only on a 45-day-old account? 4 or 5 years ago, it became very obvious that Raid was a pay-to-win game. There's really no doubt about it. You can definitely play the game free to play, and I'm assuming that at least the majority of the player base does not spend money or only spends a little bit, and that the heavier spenders are the ones that support the game, that allow it to be free to play for all the other players who don't spend. And that's just the reality of gacha games in 2026. You need spenders to keep the lights on, to have the servers, to get updates, to fix bugs. You need a large team of people to do that. Since I personally cannot be a heavy spender on games, and so I very much appreciate what the big spenders allow us to do. The way they set up their system. So in a previous video in this series, we talked about how Simon and his team is developing a really good system for Godforge. And I'm hoping that that system will be better than Raid's, because Raid does have some problems, and we're going to talk about those now. So the first thing is that I said earlier, they do have plenty of events and tournaments. So if you look at the events and tournaments, most of them are only 2 or 3 days long. Occasionally you'll get things that are a little bit longer, but that obviously creates spending pressure, and so you feel the need to go in. And so here, this Gear Hunters event, it's about 1 day left, and I'm not even halfway. So the way the Raid community has reacted to this heavy spending pressure from the development team is that either they become a big spender and they spend a lot of money, or they take the second route, which is either the low spender or the free-to-play route, where they basically save their resources so that they're able to do an event or a tournament now and then. And some people, if they're really efficient with their resource use, they might be able to do 1 or 2 events a week, or 1 or 2 events every couple of days. But if you're only playing the game casually, you're gonna have to really save a lot of resources, and maybe you're only doing 1 event a week or 1 tournament a week. And as a new player coming into Raid, it feels really bad that I can't do most of the events and most of the tournaments. I just have to let them pass by. Otherwise, I throw whatever resources I can into an event, and I only get a third of the way through it. So as a new user, within just a few days, you basically learn, especially if you're watching videos and talking to people in the game, it's called hurry up and wait. So you're going to save and wait, save and wait. When you start out on day 1, the game does flood you with energy and gems and green shards. So the first few days, there's absolutely nothing stopping your progress. It's a lot of fun. You're getting new champions left and right, and it's really cool. And then you kind of hit a wall. So if you're not spending, you hit a wall. You're suddenly out of energy. you're out of you're out of gems, and so then you have a problem in that if you're really into the game, you can't play it. You have to sit and wait and carefully marshal your resources and carefully plan, and it's just not a very good feeling. Plarium has come up with this system where they limit the good shards. You get plenty of mystery shards. Unless you're building a lot of champions very, very quickly, you don't really run out of mystery shards. Ancient, Void, Primal, and Sacred are all fairly limited in the game. It's not a lot of good shards when you're starting the game, which is why those promo codes from the content creators are so useful. Because then you've got 5 or 6 monsters that you can be working on building. So the lack of shards is not as bad as it would seem. So I'm realizing that the system is very limiting for new players after you get past that first burst of energy, because you have a lack of shards, and then they don't give you a lot of energy. So I'm about 6 hours in from the reset, and I've been sitting here as I was prepping for this video. I was just sitting here letting my energy recharge because I'm already out of energy. Now I am saving, so you can see that I'm saving my arena tokens. I'm saving as much energy as I can. And full disclosure, I did get the daily energy pack and also the daily gem pack. So I did spend a little bit just to allow me to progress. Without those, it felt like I couldn't make any progress in the game. So with Plarium limiting shards, limiting gems, limiting energy, you have to sit back and collect resources and just realize you're not going to advance nearly as fast as you want to. And then the silver economy is you're always out of silver. I have less than 1 million silver because I recently put some better gear on my Kale, and I'm trying to get all of it up to plus 16. And it sometimes takes 1 to 3 or sometimes even 4 million silver to get one artifact up to plus 16. They have over 1,000 champions in the game, right? When you start looking all of these things that are in my reserve vault, these are heroes that I'm unlikely to ever build. Some of them are dupes, but a lot of them are just units that they're just not good. So here you've got a typical rare champion in Raid. Okay, so her A1 puts a poison debuff on. A2 has a decent chance of putting a weaken on, and there's champions that are even worse than this one. And then on just this champion, it puts increased defense and block debuffs. And it's a 6-turn cooldown, 3 after you book it. But where are you going to use this champion? And you're not. Not only are they limiting shards, energy, and gems, but they're also limiting the number of useful champions. I want to pull up a very short clip here, an interview from Unbound Sage when he was talking with Brad from Fateless. We're going to play this clip really quick, and then we're going to talk about it afterwards.
We all know that the truth is there's going to be like a meta. There's going to be, people are going to have heroes that end up rising to the top, and they're going to have legendaries they think are worse. That's just always going to happen. But our job is to try and kind of shrink that gap. Like, we don't want something is 10 times better than anything else, and we don't want something that would never be used.
Yeah. Every hero needs a home, basically, right?
At least something that they're useful for sure.
Yeah. That's exciting to hear. I love that's kind of the obvious philosophy to have, but it's nice to hear it from from the game developers or game designer to be like, yeah, we are doing that. There is conversations, right? So
for sure, and hopefully very robust. A lot of times these games, they want to do balance changes like once a year or something. So I'm hoping we can hit that mark a little bit more often, especially here when the game is early access and new. I can't sit here and leak like a certain cadence, but I know we want to be very good about staying on top of that kind of stuff and at least making sure every hero has somewhere to go.
This is one of the things I'm really looking forward to from Fateless, from Godforge, is that they are deliberately planning to try to find at least one use for every rare or higher champion that they have in the game, because it really feels like in Raid there are so many rare champions that are just not used. And part of that is because the game is so old now, and there's so many epics and legendaries that are out there. But I really hope that Godforge sticks to that, especially if they have some kind of thing that's similar to Faction Wars, because then, you know, it's a champion collector game. It would be really cool to be able to use a lot of different champions in the game, whereas in Raid, you know, I think that there have been a few times where I've had 10 or 20 shards that I saved up, and I pull them all, and they all end up being rares, and none of them were anything that I would build. Raid is limiting the number of shards you get, and then you finally save up 10 to 20 of them, and you use them, and you don't get anything useful. And it's just not a good feeling as a new player. Doom Tower, you need specific champions. Cursed City, you need specific champions. And I really like Grim Forest, but they limit your champion choices when you're trying to attack a specific content area. You can't use most of your champions. So it becomes this loop of you need better champions in order to beat certain content, and you can't get those champions because you're not getting a lot of good shards, and you can't get a lot of good shards because you need a lot of energy to farm, and you're not getting the energy. And then you need good artifacts and accessories to beat the harder content, but you can't level them up because you're not getting enough silver. And so that was the eventual loop that is what made me quit Raid 4 or 5 years ago. I was like, there were just so many things that the developers were limiting, wanting to play the game, and you can't. It's just, eventually I just got disinterested. I didn't want to stick around for a game that I had to sit around and wait for. So I wanted to make this video to talk about me as, you know, as a lower spender, free-to-play player. What am I hoping that Godforge can do? And I think we've kind of laid that out. Is hopefully there's a better silver economy, a better energy economy, and the heroes are. It seems like Raid did not give a ton of thought, especially to their rares. I'm really hoping that Godforge can improve on what I see as some shortcomings of Raid that I think drive a decent amount of players away. Is that you want to be able to play the game, you want to have the heroes that you're getting are at least useful somewhere. Maybe you need to wait to build them until you have more resources, but you're not collecting these heroes that you know that you'll never build. And so Raid is a good game. I'm just really hoping that Godforge will improve upon it. There's a lot of evidence that Godforge has already thought about a lot of these things that I'm bringing up, but as a new player, a new content creator for the game, I just wanted to get those thoughts out there. So just a brief update on my main account. I've gotten all the ether I need. I'm going for the Forge Fire Hammer. I got the Wukong imprint. I'm going with the Dark Tempest portrait. I'm just waiting on, I have 300 summons. We're not going to do those today. This video is already long enough. But we're waiting for hopefully a little more information to be released on some of the heroes, some of the legendaries that you can get. Anyway, I just wanted to get these thoughts out there. If you have any thoughts, you agree, disagree with what I've been saying, feel free to put some comments into the YouTube comments. I'd be happy to chat with people there. There's also a link to my Discord. If you're thinking about doing Godforge and you want to have a little group to work with, we're getting a group of people together that are going to be playing. We still don't know if we're going to make our own guild, our own pantheon, or if we're going to join someone else's just as a group. And so, but we're really looking forward to it. Anyway, that's all my thoughts for now. Until the next video, see ya.